first of 3 public hearings pertaining to the millage rate, and we'll have this one this morning, we'll have one this evening at 6 o'clock, and then we'll have the final on Thursday of next week. It'll be at 6 too, right, Don?
Yes.
At 6?
At 5.
I mean 5, so 5 o'clock. Now, when that's, okay, the school board, or do you know yet when they're on, what kind of schedule they're on yet? I mean,
They're on Monday schedules, so
okay.
We'll set that sometime.
As far as having that final, if we do approve, and by the way, the millage rate is staying at 8 mills at this moment right now. It's not going up. We're still working on some numbers. I'm not saying it's going to go down, but at least we're keeping it the same. And as I've said before, you know, that's what these meetings are for. They're public hearing, public meetings, but I've had people come in the office off and on, you know, for the past week or so and talk to Don now. And if you've got issues or need to know or want to calculate your taxes, if you're worried about writing that bottom number and it being tremendously high or whatever, we got numbers there. We can put it together and give you a real number, you know, real close to that number that it will that you'll owe in November or next taxes. So, and most of them that we've calculated, really, you know, are sample things that we've got here. That these are real people. I won't call any names, but the majority of them, you know, either stayed the same, all but 1 or 2, and they were really large landowners, or they went down just a little bit, you know. And the ones that went up are people that actually have added quite a bit to their value of the property. I mean, even though their value went up for the property, but they've added swimming pools or maybe paved driveways or whatever, you know. And so that was the reasoning on the ones we pulled, you know. So, but Don, you want to go into anything there and just go ahead and kind of. Sure. I know you spent a tremendous amount of time too, and Becca, and of course we have today here. We have Paula. If there's anyone any questions, and of course their job is the appraisals. They don't collect taxes. They are the people that do the appraisals and do the every 3 years. You know, they have to go do a reval on all of our property, and that's their job. Angie, I think, is she coming down? Is she coming in?
I invited her.
Okay, well, Angie Galloway, she's our tax commissioner, of course, and she's actually that's what she is, tax commissioner. She's a constitutional officer, and she's a tax collector, you know, and so she, if you have, of course, questions about the value of your property, we'll go to Paula, and then if we've got the, if you need to talk about the actual tax commissioner's position as far as your taxes go, then you know, she's the one that does the collection. So that's who you talk to there. And we'll have, hopefully both of them will be here. Don, you want to?
Sure. So this is the first of 3 required public hearings under state law, according to the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that was passed back in 1999-ish, maybe 2001. And as required last week was in the paper, our 5-year history and the 2023 property tax digest record. At the top, you see, that's for y'all, it's under tab 2. You see at the top, it's saying at 5:30 next Tuesday, I'm sorry, 5:30 next Thursday, the 17th, we'll have a special call meeting to consider setting the millage rate in Dade County. And the unincorporated rate area, that's broken into 2 parts there, you see, unincorporated area and also the incorporated. Incorporated means the property that's located inside the city limits. That's the county's incorporated properties, and the unincorporated is the properties located outside the city limits. Looking at the top, you see real and personal property came in at $671,872,463. I won't get into all those details, but you can see down through there, motor vehicles, 5.7 million, mobile homes, 6.2 million, timber, tax came in at 134,928. And then, so our gross digest is 638,978 in the county. And the exemptions that were recorded during the time, which was up to what, about May something, yeah.
April 1st.
Oh, yeah, it was April 1st, I'm sorry, April 1st, that were recorded comes to 202,539,000. That's a lot. I mean, that's part of the, if we didn't have any exemptions, that's part of the digest. That would be in the that is the digest.
Yeah.
And just imagine a world where there are no exemptions, then the millage rate would be naturally much lower assessed. But anyway, the net digest value there is 481,438 for the unincorporated area. And then below you see the 2023 incorporated real and personal property total 138.2 million. Motor vehicle 893.7 thousand. Mobile homes 91,000. And typically there's no timber within the city borders. So the gross digest there was $139,212,769. The total exemptions in the city property, or I should say incorporated area, is $31,271,248. So the net digest value is $107,941,521. And then, so a combined total digest, if you look at the very bottom there, total county, total digest value is $589,380,463. So that sounds very confusing, and the reason we do what's called the millage rate is the mill is a thousandth. So we knock off the last three digits. So we say that a mill in Dade County is worth $589,378. That's the gross digest less exemptions, and looking at both unincorporated and incorporated combined. And then based off the millage rate, the way the county produces income or revenues for the county to function, we set the millage rate based off the budget. In the budget, we said that we needed to collect $4,954,566. So that millage rate actually is at 15.0668, but we have what's called rollbacks, and you see up there in the unincorporated, there are two rollbacks there really, and that value is 7.0668. What that is what's called the lost, which is the local option sales tax ratio, and also the insurance premium tax ratio. The county takes the proceeds from our lost tax, which is 80% of 1 penny, and we put that directly into the general fund. So it directly offsets property taxes. And that totals 4.8478 meals, basically, after you calculate this. That's almost 5 meals that sales tax. People traveling through, purchasing fuel, hamburgers, whatever, that's the kind of tax, that's the sales tax that's rolling back.
What you're saying is, to be real clear to everybody, is that if we did not have that,
Yes.
That equal to the meal, you're looking at 5 meals, 5 point whatever meals.
That's right.
If we did not have the lost and what we're using on SPLOST, okay?
That is correct.
Yeah, to make it simple, that's
correct.
That's
And then the
lot.
insurance premium tax, we do the same thing. The insurance commissioner annually reports that, and we submits. It's based off the U.S. Census values in Dade County. They take all insurance premiums paid, life insurance, homeowners insurance, car insurance, mobile boat insurance, whatever, and you pay a premium, a tax on that. All those taxes are put into a formula. The Department of Revenue splits out according to your population. That's why if we do our census, how important it is to get an accurate census. As we know, we've appealed our census through the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission, along with many other Northwest Georgia counties, because we feel like it's too low. But anyway, that, based off the census, it calculates out an insurance premium tax ratio of 2.219 mils. So again, you take those two values, 2.219, 4.8478 from the loss, and you get 7.0668. And that's directly rolls back the millage rate from 15.0668 to 8.0000 mils, which is proposed. Then near the bottom, you see the incorporated is the same situation, except there it's only the local option sales tax. The city, I don't know if cities get that insurance premium tax, or I can't remember what their situation is, but anyway, the rollback for the incorporated area only is the local option sales tax. And again, we roll that back 4.8478. It's my understanding the city, based off theirs, I'm not here to talk about the city, but you know, they get 0.20, which is 20% of the loss. They do the same thing when they calculate their millage rate. You know, they take the 20% value, whereas we take the 80% value. Anyway, and theirs is projected to be 10.219, which is a reduction from 2022 from 10.5535 mils to 10.2190 mils, which I believe came out to be 0.334 mil reduction in the incorporated area. Those combined are projected to produce the amount you see below at 4.9 million. And because we have, you see the below it says 522,794, because that's increased from last year, Georgia says we have to advertise a tax increase. Even though the millage rate's the same, we are collecting more, or would be collecting more if approved, and therefore we have to advertise that as a net tax increase. And that's why we have to have these public hearings, which I think public hearings are good regardless. Even if we went down, it's good to have public hearings to tell people what's going on, because these things are very confusing. Page tab 3 there, the next 2, 3, and 4, you're going to see the unincorporated rate and the incorporated, and that's just the state's formula, how they calculate the millage rate, the rollback millage rate. And the rollback millage rate is 7.358 for the unincorporated, and the incorporated is 9.555. And then tab 5 is just a summary that we have to report to the tax commissioner, and then she submits this to the Department of Revenue, called PT 35, and you see the incorporated rate listed there again, and then the unincorporated. And also, we've been in the paper, the school has advertised their rate, proposed rate, going from 14.2 mils to 14.000 mils. Again, that's a reduction. But again, because they're collecting more funds, they'll have to have their public hearings. And I think they've already had their first no, they haven't had their first public. Okay, they'll be having their first public hearing soon. I'm not sure of their schedule. That's the summary. Okay.
Paul, you want to add anything? I mean, as far as what, you know, you're like I said, you're the assessor, over assessor, you know, as far as the reevaluation and all. I mean, I know you've explained it to a lot of people. A lot of people's come in and talked to you, and you've went on and talked on the radio about it and all, but real shortly, do you want to kind of go into, and,
Well, I think
you know,
maybe one thing I might add is the increase in the digest. There's a lot of things that contributed to that for 2023. We did increase the dollar per square foot on residences. Of course, any new construction is going to add to the digest. So what you're seeing as far as the difference in the digest is what we consider growth. And then, you know, just doing the dollar per square foot, we did change some land values here and there. We did have a little over 300 appeals. I've worked through, you know, half of those, about 100 of them will go before the Board of Equalization. So the numbers you're seeing are pretty, you know, they shouldn't change very much between now and then.
So we still got a couple of hundred, you think, or less than that, outstanding that will have to go to the,
Yeah, right at
Yep.
about 100.
okay.
Yeah, and we did increase commercial properties this year too, so it wasn't just residential this year, it was
Yeah.
across the board for sure this year.
What percent was that? Do you remember what the increase? You said you increased across the board?
It was about 15%,
Okay.
13 to 15%.
Yeah.
Average.
Been a while since that happened, though, since it had actually, you'd actually had it.
Well, I mean, the last 3 years, we've had to increase residential properties, but that's just
On
because.
commercial, on the industry, on commercial properties, it
On
was,
commercial properties, it's probably been about 5 to 6 years.
been a while,
probably
yeah,
since
I knew it'd been a
we've
while
increased.
on that.
We just, and the reason for that, we just don't have enough sales to, you know, justify, it's kind of like large tracts, you know, we don't have a lot of large tract sales, so unfortunately on those, we have to wait several years till we get a good group of sales to actually justify making any changes.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes, even though that's unfortunate, that's just the way our county, you know, has to operate, because that's just the way our market is. So we don't
Right.
have a lot of large tract sales or commercial sales.
Is it looking like we're gonna meet our sale ratio studies now?
We did receive that yesterday. As far as the median ratio, we're good on that. The number that we were off last year, the coefficient of dispersion, it's better this year, but it's still a little bit above the passable amount. So we may appeal. The only thing about appealing, especially when it's that close, we're supposed to be at a 15 on residential, we were like at a 15.3, I think, something like that. So it's not a lot. The concern is if you appeal and they, let's say, take some of the sales out or add some of the sales, that can affect that median, which I think is what happened last year. So we fell below 0.38, so we couldn't tax public utilities at 40%. So we're at 38.13 or something like that, I think. So we'll probably just leave it alone for this year so that we can tax public utilities at 40% this year. Next year is the big year when, you know, if we don't correct that COD issue, then the county would receive a consent order.
But that's the end of the 3-year, they give you 3 years and then,
That's right. Right now, we're just under a conditional
that's right. Yeah.
improvement of the digest. Now, next year, if we do not pass our 2024 audit report, as far as the COD is concerned, then the county gets put under a consent order, then you basically have 3 more years to
Yeah.
correct that same issue, so.
That means you gotta bring the values back in line with.
Well, they are in line. See, that's the issue we're having, you know,
Right.
we do everything we're supposed to do in the office, you know, every year. We, you know, our internal ratios are fine, or else we wouldn't do what we did. But when you have the Department of Audits coming in that uses a different method and different pool of sales,
Yep.
it's impossible, especially in the market we've seen that's gone up so drastically in the last 3 years. We cannot keep up with the Department of Audits because they're using the year ahead sales where we use the year behind. There's just no way, you know.
They
we can
both
keep
know
up.
to get, they both need to get on the same,
Well-
you know, because like you said in there that whole time when we had those people come in, explain that, everything, and you were doing your job. It's,
Absolutely.
you know, and this is the state people they send in here, the auditors, whatever.
Yeah, that
I
was the
feel
audit
good when I
department.
walked out there, I mean, you know, but there again, here we got hit back, you know, we got a notification letter 30 days later. And because y'all were right in line, everything was really, they even applauded you on some things you were doing.
Yeah.
And then turned right around, and just because of that, when they went, shit's crazy, it's not right, I mean, it's just not right.
The issue is really not with the
But I
Department of Audits.
guarantee there's a lot of counties though right now, this year, I bet you that are.
Oh, there's a lot of counties that failed again
More
this
so than
year.
last year ever.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's gonna be really a big challenge, I guarantee.
Something's gonna have to
happen.
change.
Yeah.
What happened was several years ago, when I first started in 2005, it was the Department of Revenue that did our compliance studies and our ratio studies to, you know, Department of Audits also did it, but we were not dependent on that for our compliance.
Yeah.
But then Department of Revenue decided, well, they're doing it anyway, so let's just let them do it. And then, you know, so that's what happened. Department of Revenue is the one that should be doing our ratio.
Just like it was, like it used to be.
Like per the law, like we're supposed to do.
Yep. Yeah.
The Department of Audits is not doing anything wrong. Their audit report is for QTE, for the school system,
Yeah.
is what an audit report is for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's just something's gonna have to give one way or the other. Borough counties just, again, are not gonna be able to keep up.
But it was caused by the difference between how the property values rose
Oh, yeah.
due to sales between when
Oh,
you were able to
absolutely.
pull, and they came in and do their audit, and they pulled the new information.
Absolutely.
If there's
That's
not
right.
that change in value, then you're fine.
That's
But
right. That's
every
why we
year
did fine
we've
for
had that
years.
increase in value
That's
that's
right.
caused the discrepancy, which we
Exactly.
haven't seen in the past.
That's right.
Like
Not
we
as much
have
as
these
we
last
have,
couple
yeah,
years.
that's right. Because we were using, you're talking about January 1, that's the tax date. So, everybody tries to get, what were values in the market on January the 1st. Well, they were using let's say for 2022, they were using September of 2022. Well, that's 9 months
And a lot of
ahead
things
of
happen.
us,
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was just no way to keep up with that, so. But it was better this year, so.
Yeah. Well, next year, we'll just need to, do what, I know.
I
mean, you're doing all you can do, I know, but,
You
just,
need to
That's
have like
what's
a crystal
frustrating.
ball. Like, what is it-
Exactly.
From January to December, what's gonna happen? And I mean, it is, it's a.
That's right. And we're trying to put more weight on the sales towards the end of the year, maybe the last quarter of the year. We're doing some measurements along throughout the year, like the first quarter, second quarter, to see, where the lines are, putting a little more weight on the end of the year. We can pull some sales from the beginning of the year, just to kind of use as backup, verification, just to make sure that the values we're setting for January 1st are what we see as being the market for our county.
okay, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Maybe, I'd like to get Angie here tonight, I'm gonna go in and talk to her and see if she, because, it'd be good to have
Yeah.
both of y'all here,
Yeah, and there's another exemption, I don't know if it's been talked about much, the, what's it, the HRTG or something? Homeowners tax credit.
relief credit grant.
The governor, has set up a new tax credit for 2023.
Is that what she's saying?
It's an $18,000 tax credit. So that is another exemption that anyone that has a homestead exemption automatically qualifies for that additional $18,000 exemption.
And it's exemption on the value of your home.
On the
correct?
assessed value,
Yeah.
you're gonna get an additional $18,000 off, your taxable
Well,
value.
if you already,
So,
under homestead, then is that saying that they don't have to come in and fill a form out?
No.
It automatically, okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
If you have the homestead, you're gonna get the additional 18,000. So tax bills, they're gonna go down this year if you have a homestead. If you
And
don't
that's
have a
for, is that
homestead,
for
you
this,
don't
is
qualify.
that for this cycle, or is that for next year?
For this year.
For this year, you'll see it.
Right now.
2023, that's correct.
And that is
That's
state,
good.
and that grant is based off of our millage rate. So, if your millage rate was 10, for instance, you're gonna get more than you would if it's 4.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna give us a check from the Department of Revenue through the state for whatever we set our millage rate at, that's what we'll get based off that grant.
So the county won't lose
There's a
any money,
formula again.
but taxpayers will get an additional exemption if they have a homestead, so.
What if that's a 1 year, what if that's a 1 year thing? Because
So
I've heard
far.
about it, but I hadn't studied it. I really
So
hadn't-
far,
I
it's just
think
1
it's
year.
putting the money back into the citizens, that
That's correct.
the money that the
The
state
surplus
has.
money,
The state's gotta have so much money, and they've collected so much more, and they're giving it back through that and
that's right.
through everything. Now, when you have to send out I always call them, this is not a bill, that comes from you.
Assessment notice,
Then
right?
we get the bill from the tax commissioner.
That's correct.
Now, we won't know that until so that could be a big disparity in what
Oh,
we
absolutely,
got from you.
absolutely.
So we're right now just looking at, I'm wondering, is it to the place that if I went in and said, can you tell me how that's gonna affect my personal taxes now? Because we got to take that under consideration on everything we do. It may
And I
be a
think Don
one-time
has.
thing,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
because it's huge.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
My other question is, when you talk about the square footage, and I know we hadn't changed that in years, I think it was what, $85?
We changed the dollar
a
per square foot for the last 3 years, it's gone
How
up.
much?
The last 3 years, we've changed the base dollar per square foot.
Now, when we come up, is that I mean, there's no $50,000 homes anymore, the old shell homes we used to in my day, there's none of them left anymore. And
The only lower valued homes you're gonna see are gonna be based on the year they were built, pretty much, and the condition.
so the square foot is kind of a median of not
I think we're at
high-end
2,200.
homes or low-end, but a median of what it would cost to build. Because every month, I think, Philip, I think you're the one who talks about the electrical permits. And do you have anything that shows how many brand spanking new homes went in? Because these are not accurate, because it may be somebody wanting to run electricity to a barn.
That's correct.
And they're gonna put another meter in or whatever.
That's correct. That's right.
But we've got to look around. When people look around the county, there's homes going up everywhere and apartments
That's right.
and all this stuff that's happening. And that makes this number, when we look at what we are on the 5-year, that makes that number huge. But that don't mean that everybody's taxes are going up. And I'm saying this to the people that are listening. Everybody's taxes are not going up, but those people that moved in or even sold their home to build a bigger home or whatever,
Right.
most of that increase is based on our growth and it doesn't match our census. I don't think we'll ever get a change. Shoot, we're halfway through this census term anyway of 10 years just about. So
Right.
it really don't matter at this point, but we can argue that till we go on. Just like it seemed like you can argue that the state's going by one, they're going by future and we're going by past or present or whatever.
Right.
But I just want, people have to realize there's so many variables in here.
Oh, absolutely.
And when Don mentioned the amount of, it's astounding how many exemptions.
Absolutely.
If those exemptions weren't on there, then it would be that much larger.
That's right.
But I get an exemption that a 45-year-old doesn't get, and it's what? It's a 65 and 5 exemption.
That's right.
So we got to look at the total picture when we look at what taxes are and the digest is, and what all it takes in over the prior year to now, and it's really not as much as it looks like when you just look at a number.
That's right.
I know y'all have to work hard at it, but it'd be interesting to know how many brand new houses that were never on our digest from year to year
Okay, we can do that. We can
are
print a report.
now on it. People that are moving in or rebuilding that are now paying taxes in Dade County.
Right.
If they built an apartment and they live, or some apartments, and they live in Catoosa County, they're gonna be paying Dade County taxes now
That's correct.
on their property here, and that's happened.
That's right.
We know that. So, there's just too many variables that people need to look at before they just
That's right.
prejudge that everything's going sky high, everything's going out of line, because it's really not.
And two things I want to address since you brought a couple things up. The 65 and 5, that's the school tax exemption,
Right.
which is the largest exemption in the county because the school tax is the largest portion of our tax bill. But I just, want to reiterate that exemption only exempts your house and
Right.
up to 5 acres. Everybody will usually always have a little bit of school tax because you might have over 5 acres. Everybody has a home site value, the $2,500 home site value, so that will always be taxed for school purposes. Any outbuildings, paved driveways, anything like that, you're still going to pay school taxes on.
Yes.
Some people, just don't quite understand that. And then one other thing is the base dollar per square foot. When we say $125 base rate, we're not saying everybody's at $125 per square foot. We're saying that's where everybody starts. That's the level playing field. Then when you add stuff to that or take things away, that affects that dollar per square foot either up or down. Some places are at $50 a square foot where you have homes that might be at $250 a square foot, So the 125 is just the starting point. And then it goes from there based on, like you said, the different variables on everybody's homes,
Right. And I don't care talking about mine when you talk about the 65 and 5, or whatever we want to call it.
Right,
I still pay some on my home and my lot because I've got an outbuilding.
that's right.
So everybody thinks, so when they see that, well, I'm not supposed to be paying this.
Right.
It's very little. But on my mom and dad's old place that I bought on the mountain, I don't get any
That's right.
deduction for that.
That's
So
right.
people need to realize you own several properties. You're not getting the school tax off of, but I think some people think that when they first get it, that I won't pay any more. But now you will decrease a lot because your home is the biggest part of it.
That's right.
And you get 5 acres. If you own 20 acres, you're still gonna pay on 15 acres of it, and so on and so forth. But
That's correct. Yeah,
that's
the
a good
homes-
point, because people, that's what I mean. There's so many variables that people need to sit down and really look at
That's right.
before they judge that everything's, blown out of the water, because it's not.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you can only qualify for a homestead exemption, any of the homestead exemptions, if it's your primary residence. It has to be your primary residence. So you can only, in the state of Georgia, you're only allowed one homestead exemption. So, and it has to be, that's where you live. That's your home, that's your homestead. That's what a homestead is.
And I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but to that point,
Amen.
well, yeah. I'm glad to get an amen. We're gonna take up an offering in a minute. And this is going back on my own ignorance. So I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about all those people out there that know better. My wife and I bought our home, and I didn't know what escrow was. But it got under escrow. Well, every year, escrow paid my taxes.
Right.
Escrow paid my insurance. But you know what wasn't on there? Was a homestead exemption.
That's right.
So when I paid that home off, I didn't have, and I thought, well, that's not right. So if you're on an escrow, you need to go have that taken care of if escrow's paying your taxes and everything, because we didn't have a homestead exemption, and it was my own just not knowing how things work.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of younger people out there that may be buying a home and have escrow that don't realize, oh man, I don't even have to pay insurance. I don't even have to pay taxes. They're doing all that for me. But when that's all done and over with and you go back to paying it, then you get this larger tax bill because you don't have
That's right.
an
House payment
exemption
goes up.
for that homeowner. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
just a point made to everybody out there, don't be as goofy as I was, I guess. I've outlived it though, so I'm good now.
All right.
Take up the offer and I'm not saying any more.
Lamar, you want to add anything, or Mr. Hartline? I mean, we got, it's
The
just
only thing,
covered quite a bit, but I mean, it's,
only thing I'd like to say is I've had one neighbor come to my house and made me feel good that he felt good enough to come to my home because we grew up together. And then I have one family member that has expressed concern about the expenses, but once I sat down with both of them, showed them my property taxes and my bills, I think one of them still appealed, but the other one was understanding. But I've had a lot more people worried about services than I have worried about the increase in the budget, the taxes. There's people still wanting their roads paved, and road paving is just got out of hand. And, well, everything has. I mean, we're trying to
fuel and everything. I mean, it's the whole, everything. you
keeping
can
our
protect.
inmates fed and keeping the lights on in the buildings and the facilities. And some of this stuff is not a matter of want to. We're obligated to fund the sheriff's department, the judicial system. And the stuff that we're not obligated to do, people are expected as a service. And we're trying to do it as cheap as we can, but road paving, the transfer station, just to get rid of garbage. The price just keeps going out of sight.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize, but we're probably the only county with amongst us around in a long ways that doesn't charge to get rid of that when you pull up with your car.
So much a bag.
So much a bag to get rid of your garbage. Well, we don't charge that, but you're paying for it. It's a service that's being paid for, but the cost of that service is going up tremendously. And we're all doing the best we can. We're all sitting here taxpayers. We got a great county that we live in. And I think everybody's doing the best they know how, so that's all I got.
Phil, you got anything you want to add? Okay. If not, Dawn, you got anything, anybody? Becca, do you want to make a quote or anything? We'll be back here tonight.
Media's
6
coming.
o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry. We have the press here. What? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a couple questions. One, I've heard y'all talk about how you don't think that many people are going to be paying more, even though their assessments went up and the millage rate is the same. So you do the math and they will be paying more.
So is that because of the homestead exemptions and then this other extra tax credit that homestead tax grant that you're talking about, is that why you're saying that people won't be paying more unless they've,
That is part of it, yes, because it's, and plus this other that the governor, has actually, that's gonna help too. That'll be big. And, so, yeah, that's what overrides that, because if you didn't, the math wouldn't add up if you didn't have, that, yeah.
right, and that's what I was saying. So if someone had not made any improvements to their property, but the assessment still went up and the millage rate's the same as last year, you do the math and they would be paying more this year.
Well, they're probably the same or less.
Unless they have the
If
freeze.
they're
Unless they
homesteaded.
added-
If they're
Not
homesteaded.
It's probably gonna,
Yeah.
if
More.
property
Yeah.
increased.
Okay.
If they live in the incorporated area,
Yeah.
that rate actually decreased, and we're hearing that the school board's gonna reduce theirs 0.2 mils, so theoretically, if it stayed the same, their values, it
Yeah.
could potentially go, it probably would potentially go down. I mean, I don't
If the
see how.
value didn't change.
If the value didn't change, but if the value changed, if they put in a swimming pool or something,
But
Okay.
You can see that. I mean, the school board, Paula mentioned this, and a lot of people know this, some people don't, but, you're almost 70% of your taxes go to your schools. I mean, that's, and we get the other portion to operate this whole county out of your property taxes. And some people even argue with me on that, but that's true. You look at your tax bill and look down there, you can see, and so, we're giving, it costs a lot, like Lamar said, to operate this county. I mean, and it don't go down. I mean, your fuel and all that. So, that right there, I mean, because first thing goes through your mind, you think, well, yeah, the school board's dropping theirs a little bit. Why can't y'all? Well, I know that their budget's a lot more than ours, but still though, we try to be, really good. We try to be really tight with your money, and put it that way. And it's just, it gets harder every year, especially leaving everything flat, the millage rate and all that, I mean, it's just, so, I don't know whether that answered your question, but I mean,
Yes, that answered it.
off another thing, but it just,
I had one other question also. So I'm assuming y'all have probably heard about Walker and Catoosa going with the rollback rate. And I know they're different counties, different populations, different demographics.
different size counties,
But
the whole thing.
yeah, any thoughts on how they were able to do that? I was surprised to hear that they both were able to go with the rollback rate.
Yeah,
their values greatly increased.
yeah,
Because they're still collecting more, that's why they're having public hearings.
yeah, they're having to do just like we are.
Their values also went up. And most counties in Georgia have gone up a lot because of these sales tax ratio reports, not sales tax, sales ratio reports, I was at tax. But anyway, not directly, but if you take a year off, let's say, well, you're just gonna be in the hole bigger the next year, and then you'll get dinged by this Department of Audits and Accounts, then the Department of Revenue puts you under a consent order. So you have to maintain values, and their values went up as well. If you look at their 5-year history, you'll see that their value is much higher than it was last year. Of course, they're 4 times the size of
That's
the
it, I
county.
mean, yeah.
So they
Once you
were
don't
actually
fit
able,
off,
they
I
did
think
roll
that's-
theirs back, but they're collecting a whole lot more than they did last year for us, compared to us.
That answer that? I mean, you get,
Yeah, unless you had any other, or anyone else had other thoughts to add to that.
you what now? What?
Unless anyone else had other thoughts to add to that. I think that answers it.
Okay, any more questions? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn as of now, and then we'll be back here 6 o'clock this evening, and we'll have another hearing here. So appreciate everyone, commissioners being here, and like I said, we'll try to get our tax commissioner here tonight, and in case there's some questions we need to ask her, so. All right, we'll adjourn.
Thank you very much.